How's it going, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I am an avid herpetologist, finally coming with our very first deck profile for the EX3 format. Now, I have been super excited for EX3 for a while because this set is bringing with it a lot of very unique decks. Though a lot of these are going to end up being top tier threats, but we also have quite a few very unique rogue options that if you are interested in playing a fun, kind of unique deck this format that's very different than anything we've had until this point, you have quite a few options to choose from. Now, I figured it would be fitting for the very first deck to talk about from this coming format be one of the most, I'll even use the word iconic. This is a deck that is focused around 4 of the big Digimon dragons from the Digimon lore, specifically the 4 Great Dragons archetype. Now, I'm not in generally a big yellow player. Yellow doesn't usually kind of fit my personal play style, but this deck is super cool. It's kind of like a pseudo Mega Zoo style deck where your goal is to be playing out a bunch of big level 6s and then ending with a big blitz turn. But the way you get there is really cool, really unique. The entire deck kind of revolves around an 8-cost option card called Trial of the 4 Great Dragons. It's a very unique deck, so I've been super excited to talk to you guys about it, and we're going to begin off our EX3 deck profiles with this list. So we're going to go ahead and get right into it with our eggs. Now, the eggs have been very much between 2 different eggs. I may end up running a split of 5 at some point. Currently, we are going to be running, though, 4 copies of Upamon from BT3. This is a very good generic black egg with the simple inheritable that on attack, if you have 3 or less security cards, you get to draw a card. Now, a lot of other 4 Great Dragons lists are playing copies of Viximon. I'm really torn between these 2 eggs. I think there's benefits to running both. The downside of Viximon's inheritable is your turn once per turn. When you use an option card with a cost of 2 or more, then you can again draw a card. So in theory, you're going to have a little bit more control over this. However, you're not playing that many option cards in this deck. Now, as I mentioned, you do revolve around one option card in particular, but a lot of the time you're going to be trying to cheat that card into play, so you're not necessarily going to get the draw off of Viximon. So Upamon could potentially be a little bit better as a more consistent draw engine because you're not going to be attacking with your stack super often, but it's just another thought. So for this particular list, we're going to go with a 4-1 split. You could easily switch that up. I'm honestly thinking probably more of like a 3-2 in some way, but the eggs for this deck, I think for the most part, are going to be kind of contained to these 2 in particular. They're both pretty strong in their own right. Now, getting right into the rookies for this deck. This deck is, for the most part, a bit solved. Most of the support for this deck is coming straight out of the EX3 set, so pretty much the entire evolutionary line is going to be provided by that set as well. To begin with, we have our new EX3 Agumon, and of course we'll be playing 4 copies of all of the evolutionary lines here as we go through the list. Now, Agumon here has an inheritable. Whenever you play a Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in its trait, or place a Trial of the 4 Great Dragons in your battle area, you draw a card. As we're going through the list, you're going to notice drawing cards is very important for the ultimate playstyle of this deck. Ultimately, the end goal for 4 Great Dragons is to see all 4 of your Great Dragons. Go figure. In order to do that, of course, you're going to need to dig through your deck pretty quickly. So Agumon is a very, very powerful enabler for the deck. We also have 4 copies of the new EX3 Patamon. Now, the Patamon line is more focused around on-plays, and the Agumon is more around Digivolution effects. So the Patamon here has an on-play. You can reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a yellow card with Angel in its traits, and a card with 4 Great Dragons in its traits from among them to your hand. So not only are you able to add any of your Mega levels to your hand with this on-play effect, but the 4 Great Dragons Trial option card does also have 4 Great Dragons in its traits, and it says card, not Digimon. So a lot of these searchers in this deck that are looking for copies or cards that have 4 Great Dragons are able to add the option card or one of the dragons themselves, depending on what you need in the moment. And that diversity and flexibility is definitely appreciated when you're playing something that does rely on seeing very specific cards. The last 4 rookies I'm playing is actually going to be 4 copies of Sistermon Blanc. Now, this is the Sistermon where it has the on-play to discard any card from your hand to draw 2 cards. Again, spoiler, the main goal for this deck, as I mentioned, is to see all of your dragons, so you want to dig, but they actually need to be in your trash in order to get the final combo off. So Sistermon is going to play a double duty role here where it's going to help churn through your deck while also getting some of those dragons into your discard pile a little bit faster. Now, moving up into our champions, we are going to be playing 4 copies of Veedramon. Now, this new EX3 Veedramon has a when digivolving effect, reveal the top 4 cards of your deck, add a yellow card with Dramon in its name, and a card with, again, 4 Great Dragons in its traits from among them to your hand. The rest go to the bottom of your deck in any order. So again, you're probably already seeing this is a pretty well self-contained archetype, but I've already played a couple of games with this deck, and even though it might seem a little bit redundant in what it does, I promise this deck is honestly a barrel of fun to play. It is super, super cool. Also in our champion line, we're going to be playing 4 copies of Gatomon from EX3. Now, this Gatomon is only 4 to play, and thankfully that is nice and cheap because it does have an on-play effect, as I mentioned. Again, sim is Patamon, reveal the top 4 cards, add a yellow card with Angel and its traits, and a card with 4 Great Dragons and its traits from among them to your hand. The rest, again, go to the bottom. Now, both of these cards are really fantastic, and again, helping to kind of set up your 4 Great Dragon plays, but both of them also share an inheritable that is super important for how this deck functions. Both of these guys have the identical inheritable on your turn once per turn. When you play a Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in its traits, it gains Rush. Now, as I mentioned, this is a Mega Zoo style deck, so even though we are going to be hard playing Megas off of our trial, thanks to our trial, we don't actually have to pay the memory costs. We actually get to put them into play for free. And these 2 cards are going to allow them to get some early chip damage in while you're working on setting up your late game combo. So, very, very cool. Again, I think this deck is honestly super fun. The way that it rotates is super, super unique. We're going to move up into our ultimates. We are only playing those 8 champions. First in our ultimate line is going to be, again, 4 copies of AeroVeedramon, going right up in the same evolutionary line. Now, this has a when digivolving effect. If you do not have a Trial of the 4 Great Dragons option card in your battle area, you can then play one from your hand without playing its cost, which is, again, super, super cool. The card itself actually does cost 8 memory, so having ways to cheat the Trial of the 4 Great Dragons into play is super helpful, making sure you are not passing a ton of memory, especially in the early turns. Now, the other level 5 and this level 5 are very mechanically similar. They both have that when digivolving effect to put in the Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, and also have an in-play effect that benefits as you are rotating with your 4 Great Dragon cards. Now, in the case of AeroVeedramon, while you have a Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in play, or Trial of the 4 Great Dragons in your battle area, this Digimon gains Blocker. So it actually helps create a little bit of a defensive for you. And then it's a... excuse me, the inheritable is, again, on the opponent's turn, all of your Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in the traits gain Blocker. So if you were to Digivolve on top of this, it actually makes all of your 4 Great Dragon bodies into blockers. Now, the other level 5 is, again, also from EX3, and that is going to be 4 copies of the new Angewomon. I honestly, I will admit, it's a little awkward here that we're going an Agumon, Veedramon line, and also a Patamon, Gatomon, Angewomon line. I find it a little bit awkward that they don't really seem to match up super perfectly well, but the support itself is very, very synergistic for the deck. It actually works surprisingly well. Now, Angewomon has, again, a when digivolving effect to play a Trial of the 4 Great Dragons from your hand, as long as you don't have one already in play. However, her effect is on your turn once per turn. If you play a Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in its traits, or place a Trial of the 4 Greats in your battle area, you can give one of your opponent's Digimon minus 3 KDP for the turn. That's a very classic yellow effect. The inheritable, again, is the same thing. When you play a Digimon with 4 Great Dragons in its traits, or place a Trial in your battle area, again, minus 3k DP. So, same either way. But with that, you're already kind of seeing how this deck begins to operate. So, the entire evolution line here is basically designed to search out your pieces and help rotate your Trial of the 4 Great Dragons into play. Now, as we go into starting to talk about our megas and our option cards, we're going to start talking a little bit more about the actual strategy of how this deck functions. If you're not already familiar with it, again, it is super, super cool. If you're looking for a fun, unique deck, look no further than this, and it is insanely budget. I mean, I think the most expensive card in the entire deck is probably Analog Youth, which doesn't say a whole lot. I think Analog Youth is like $2 or $3 at this point, if not cheaper. So it is an incredibly affordable deck, and will absolutely steal some games if you can get good at finding ways to make the deck rotate. But getting into our Mega line, we have to talk about, of course, the namesake of the deck, our 4 Great Dragons. So to begin with, we are going to be playing, of course, copies of all 4 of them. To begin with, we are going to start talking about Azulongmon. Now, we'll spend a little extra time talking about our 4 Great Dragons because these are really the centerpiece of the deck, and they let the deck do what it does. So we're going to be playing multiple copies of each one because we do need to see all 4 if we want to do our final combo. Azulongmon, much like the 2 of our other 3 4 Great Dragons, has very similar effects. Basically, 3 of them have effects where when they come into play, they do something, and if they were played specifically off of the effect of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, they do something additional. They also share an effect on deletion, where when they get deleted, if you again don't have a trial in play, you can then play a trial from your hand. So you remove the trial to play one. When it dies, you can replace it with another trial, so you can keep doing plays on your following turn. Now, for Azulongmon here, the on-play effect is simple. It's just draw 2 cards. However, it also has the effect where if it was played by the Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, after you have drawn your 2 cards, you can also gain 2 memory. Azulongmon is probably the weakest of the 4 Great Dragons that we're going to be seeing in this deck. However, it is still very powerful. Being able to, of course, draw 2 and gain 2 memory is definitely nothing to snuff at. And since it's so easy to play it off of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, it can be a great way to kind of establish your last push for your combo turn if you need that extra memory. Next up, the next of our 4 Great Dragons is copies of Magnadramon. Now, Magnadramon is the only one that does have another copy that actually has a decent on-play. However, since we are going to be specifically rotating around the option Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, and this has the effect of, again, on deletion to put one into play from your hand, it's probably best to just go ahead and stick with this Magnadramon from EX3, but if you want to splash the BT1 or BT2 Magnadramon that recovers 2, you are, of course, welcome to try that. I honestly might consider trying that myself. But this Magnadramon has an effect when it comes into play to give minus security attack -1 to all of your opponent's Digimon. If it was played off of the effect of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, you instead give security attack -2. So it's a really great way, again, of stalling until you are able to see your final pieces. And of course, this does, just like Azulongmon, have the on-deletion effect where you can then play a copy of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons from your hand, provided you didn't already have one in play. Now, the next of the 4 Great Dragons is my personal favorite, and honestly one of the strongest in my opinion, probably the strongest if you're talking about sheer value, and that is going to be 3 copies of Megidramon. Now, EX3 Megidramon has an on-play to delete one of your opponent's level 5 or lower Digimon. However, if it was played by Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, you can add 1 to that level, so you can delete a Mega level or below. So super powerful removal option, again making sure that you are not dying before you are able to get off your final combo. And again, once again, redundancy, when it is deleted, play a trial from your hand. Now, this last of the 4 Great Dragons is the most important for the deck, and that is going to be our final combo enabler, which is 4 copies of Goldramon. Now, Goldramon is not like the other 3. He is not one, I mean, you can play him off of Trial, and if you have Rush, you can absolutely use that to end the game on the spot, but Goldramon has a very unique effect compared to the other 3. Goldramon has a when digivolving effect to return any card with 4 Great Dragons in its traits from your trash to your hand, so it's great for either getting back another copy of your Trial, or to bring back one of your other 4 Great Dragons if you need an effect to keep yourself alive until the following turn. Now, it also has a when attacking, which is really what this deck is trying to pull off. This is the ultimate goal of the deck, is to get off Goldramon's when attacking ability to end the game. Goldramon has an effect where, on attacking, if one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6,000 DP for the turn, then you may return 1 Magnadramon, 1 Azulongmon, and 1 Megidramon from your trash to the bottom of your deck in any order to trash the top 2 cards of your opponent's security stack. So basically the idea is once you have gotten at least 1 each of your other 4 Great Dragons in your discard pile, you can go into Goldramon, either by digivolving on top of a stack or playing it off of a trial. You swing with Goldramon, return those 3 to the bottom of the deck, instantly trash 2 cards off your opponent's security, and then you have an additional attack which ideally would be ending the game on the spot, provided you can get your opponent successfully down to only 2 security prior to doing this combo. This explosive turn can come out of nowhere. It is super cool. It feels very satisfying when you can get it off because you feel like you have accomplished so much digging through your deck and finding all 4 of these incredible Mega level Digimon. If that is your playstyle, I would highly recommend trying this deck out. Again, very cheap and honestly not that weak. This deck is very powerful if you can get it to work right. Now, we are going to be playing 3 copies of a Tamer. As I mentioned earlier, we are playing 3 copies of Analog Youth. Since we're digging for specific Digimon, Analog is going to be phenomenal for the deck strategy, being only 2 memory to check 3 cards off the top of your deck and add any Digimon you want to your hand while trashing the rest. So if you see a piece of your evolutionary lines that you are missing, you can then add that to your hand while potentially trashing some of your 4 Great Dragons and helping set up your combo maybe a turn or 2 early. Now the card that the entire deck revolves around, we are playing, of course, 4 full copies of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons. This is the option card that this deck needs in order to function properly. This is an 8 to play option card. It does have a delay effect, so after being played, it will go straight to your battle area. Its main effect is to draw a card, and then again, place this card in your battle area. Now the main delay effect is by sending this card to your trash, except on the turn it was sent there. You may play 1 Digimon card with 4 Great Dragons in its traits from your hand without paying its memory cost. Now, the Digimon played by this effect cannot be digivolved to a level 7, and at the end of your opponent's turn, you must delete the Digimon. So, super cool. And it's also interesting to mention that the Digimon played by this effect cannot be digivolved to a level 7, but if you happen to have any X antibody versions, Magnadramon X is a card that exists. Technically speaking, you can't actually do that. You can go into a Megidramon X if you want to do that. Now, obviously, this option is not giving Rush. So one of the ways that you are going to be getting your chip damage in is by using your inheritables from Veedramon and Gatomon, where you can send your Trial of the 4 Great Dragons to your trash, bring one of your 4 Great Dragons into play, and then rush with it in order to get some early aggression. This is good, of course, for removing bodies, drawing cards. You'll get those powerful on plays while still getting to remove cards from your opponent's security stack while you work on getting closer to your ultimate goal of getting the Goldramon ability for the win. And as I mentioned, even though Goldramon doesn't have an on play, having that when attacking ability means if you have the Rush inheritable and you can bring Goldramon into play off of Trial, you can still rush that card in, trash the 2 security, and win out of nowhere. Now, the final 3 cards we're going to be playing in this deck are 3 copies of Godflame. Now, this card on the surface does not seem super duper powerful, but I promise it is worth it to play at least a couple of copies. Now, Godflame is a 5 memory option card. With the main ability, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 6,000 DP for the turn. Then you may return 1 card with 4 Great Dragons and its traits from your trash to your hand. The reason this is so important is you need to find ways to keep recycling your Trial of the 4 Great Dragons. As you may have heard me mention, there's a couple of ways that you can recycle it back from your trash to your hand, but the primary 2 are going to be Godflame and Goldramon. So both of these allow you to bring back your Trials from your graveyard to your hand, so you can then play them again once the 4 Great Dragon that you cheated in off of the original Trial goes away, so you can keep your rotation going. Now, obviously, this is not a tremendous number of cards that are bringing back the Trial. That's why this deck is so reliant on draw power, whether it be in the form of Viximon, Upamon, Agumon. All of these are cards with Sistermon. These are cards that are going to be drawing us cards and trying to basically ensure that we have multiple copies of Trial of the 4 Great Dragons, so we can actually see it as often as we can, because we need to basically find ways to keep looping it if you want the deck to really perform its ultimate job well. This deck, honestly, it sounds clunky, but the games that I've played with it, it actually rotates shockingly smooth. I mean, obviously, there's going to be RNG involved. There's RNG in any deck that you're playing, but this deck is far more consistent than I was expecting it to be. It's not that difficult to pull off the Goldramon combo. So, again, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you are looking for a fun deck to play, again, highly encourage this. I'm going to be posting deck lists for a bunch of the other awesome archetypes coming out of the EX3 set. So if you guys are looking forward to seeing some of those or are looking for your next deck to build, keep tuned into the channel. I'm going to be posting more of those as time goes on. Still waiting on a couple of cards to come in the mail for some of the other decks that I'm working on, such as Goldramon OTK and my personal favorite, Veedramon. For those of you looking for more Machinedramon content, I do have my list for EX3 all set up, and I will probably be doing a decklist video for my new Machinedramon build in the coming weeks as well, once I've had some more time to play with it and make sure that ratios are where I like them to be at. With that, thank you all so much again for joining me for another quick little deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. Feel free to leave a like and comment down below if you guys are having fun in this EX3 format, and let me know which decks you are most looking forward to seeing, or if there's any other decks from the format that you would like to see me cover in a deck profile. profile. Once again, I hope you all have a great rest of your night, as again, I am Avid Herpetologist, and I will see you all next time.